Livy, Book 35. Wrapping up Book 35 with the last two sections, 50 and 51. 50. Quintius' response to the two delegations seemed to be on the mark, and since its comments were delivered before supporters, they won easy acceptance. Without debate or hesitation, the participants unanimously voted that the Achaean people would regard as their enemies and their friends those whom the Roman people had judged as such themselves, and they authorized a declaration of war on Antiochus and the Aetolians. Furthermore, they immediately sent auxiliaries to the destinations specified by Quintius, 500 men to Chalcis and 500 to Piraeus. For there was almost a state of civil war at Athens, where some people were trying to win over to Antiochus members of the proletariat, who are easily bought by holding out the hope of enrichment. Eventually, Quintius was sent for by the pro-Roman faction, after which Apollodorus, the man responsible for the disaffection, was condemned and driven into exile, and the charges against him being brought by a certain Leon. The delegation returned from the Achaeans to the king with the unfavorable reply, and the response of the Boeotians was vague. They would consider what action was appropriate for them when Antiochus came to Boeotia. When Antiochus had been told that the Achaeans and Eumenes had both sent assistance to Chalcis, he thought he should move quickly so that his men could get a head start to the city and possibly surprise the enemy en route. He sent off Menippus with about 3,000 men, and Polyxenidas with the entire fleet, and a few days later he himself led to Chalcis 6,000 of his own men and a rather small number of Aetolians taken from a force that could be quickly raised at Lamia. Since the roads had not yet been blockaded, the 500 Achaeans and a small auxiliary force sent by Eumenes safely crossed the Euripus, led by Xenoclides and Chalcidian, and reached Chalcis. The Roman soldiers, who also numbered about 500 themselves, came at a time when Menippus already had his camp set up before Salganius, near the shrine of Hermes, the crossing point from Boeotia to the Isle of Euboea. Meisotheo, who had been sent as an envoy from Chalcis to Quintius to request these very reinforcements, was with them, and when he saw the pass was held by the enemy, he abandoned the march towards Aeolus and headed instead for Delium with the intention of crossing to Euboea from there. 51. Delium, which overlooks the sea, is a temple of Apollo. It is 5 miles from Tanagra, and less than 4 miles by sea to the closest parts of Euboea. The Romans were in the shrine and its grove, which are venerable and sacrosanct. enjoying the same religious status as the temples, which the Greeks call asyla. War had not yet been formally declared, nor had there been any military brushes serious enough for there to be reports of swords drawn or bloodshed in any quarter, and the soldiers were very much relaxed as they wandered about, some visiting the temple and the grove, others strolling unarmed on the beach, while a large number had slipped off to look for firewood and food in the countryside. Suddenly, Menippus attacked the widely scattered force, killing them and taking some 50 of them alive. A very small number made good their escape, including Masithio, who was rescued by a small merchant vessel. The incident was distressing for Quinctius and the Romans because of the loss of manpower it entailed, but it did also seem to have provided further justification for opening hostilities against Antiochus. The latter now moved his army up to Aulus. He then once more sent spokesmen to Chalcis, a number of his own men and some Aetolians, to raise the same issues as had been recently discussed, only with the addition of more serious threats. And despite opposition from Mysideo and Xenoclides, he easily attained his object of having the gates opened to him. The members of the pro-Roman party left the city with the approach of the king. The troops of the Achaeans and Eumenes were now in possession of Salganius, and a few Roman soldiers proceeded to build a fortress on the Euripus to defend the spot. Menippus then began an assault on Salganius, and the king himself on the fortress of the Euripus. The Achaeans and Eumenes men were the first to abandon their defensive position, striking a bargain that allowed them to depart in safety. But the Romans were more resolute in defending the Euripus. However, facing a blockade by land and sea, and seeing the engines and slings being brought up, they too failed to withstand the siege. The king now held what was the most important position of Euboea, and the other cities of the island did not reject his authority. He felt he had made an important start to the war, in that an island of such importance and so many strategical positioned cities had fallen into his hands. End of Book 35.